Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and today I'm going to show you how to reduce the temperatures inside of your Cooler Master Box Lite. Okay, so if you've been lucky enough recently to get yourself a Cooler Master Box Lite, either the 3.1 like I have, or the 5 which I had previously, and a lot of my viewers have also purchased, looking by my comments. A lot of you have said the same thing, that the temperatures inside the case aren't particularly great. Now, due to the design of the front panel, you can see up there, it's quite enclosed on the front. It looks really nice, but unfortunately it does a catastrophic thing to any airflow coming inside the case. Now, there's a few different ways you can go about reducing the temperature, and we're going to talk about that now. I'm going to show you some of the options. So the first option, the easiest option, is literally to take the case. I'll just turn around. And do that. Take the front panel off. The front is now completely open and you've got a massive amount of airflow which is completely unrestricted. It's also unfiltered, but it's completely unrestricted, so you get some really nice temperatures, everything's nice and cool, and you can use components of your choice pretty much and not have to worry about the total wattage of your components or the TDP. Now, at the moment inside mine I've got a Ryzen 3 2200G, which is overclocked to 3.8 GHz. The graphics side of it's overclocked a little bit to about 1300, up from the 1150 or whatever it is standard. So there's a little bit of an overclock going on, but not a massive amount. And at the moment, when the machine's idling, it idles with the front off. It's somewhere around about sort of 30 degrees, 32 degrees, around that sort of thing. The ambient temperature in this room generally is around about 22 degrees, thereabouts. It's now summertime. Well, if you can call it summer in England. We don't really get the most balanced of weather, so one day it can be boiling hot, the next day it's freezing cold. For instance, today the highs were 22 degrees and the lows were 9, so it's quite a big jump from hot to cold in this country. Anyway, I'm digressing. So basically, there's your first option. Take the front panel off and you can reduce the temperatures by quite a lot because it's completely unrestricted, as I said. So that is not the ideal solution in most cases. So what some people have suggested to do is, where you've got the mountings on the back, you've got 6 mounting lugs, 2 at the top, 2 in the middle, 2 at the bottom. So one suggestion is to attach it by just snapping the top 2 into place, and that way you get the airflow from underneath, you get the airflow a little bit from on top, and there's a gap down the side which widens out. Now, in this particular instance, because I haven't got any of the trim panels installed, which are these, which you've got inside your case, which come in red, white and black. Because these aren't attached, it doesn't sort of show up too much, but for a lot of people who love their PCs and like to keep them looking nice, having an odd gap down the bottom isn't a good solution. It is a partial solution, but not a great solution. So that's number 2. So the next one, which is what I tried originally with the Masterbox 5, is by having the front panel installed, but taking out the mesh filters, which are a little restrictive but not massively so. Especially actually if you find that your fans aren't static pressure fans, so they're not optimized for that kind of pressured environment, then you will lose some airflow due to these filters. Obviously they do remove dust and pollutants from inside the case, but the trade-off is you do get reduced airflow, which again in this case isn't a great thing. So I tried that. I also tried removing these, taking these out of the equation altogether, which was better. And as you can probably see from this hack job I've done on there normally would be extra vents in there, which I've removed as well, just to allow a little bit more airflow. Again, any piece of plastic or anything in the way of air is a restriction. So by removing it all, that relieves most of the restriction. So that worked pretty well, but it wasn't great. So then what I had to move on to was taking the saw to the front of the case. Now, this isn't for the faint of hearted, and also completely invalidates any warranty you've got with your case. So if you're going to do anything that I'm about to do or have done, obviously do take that in mind. You won't be able to return it after this unless your manufacturer or retailer is extremely sympathetic to your your problem. But in most cases, this will completely invalidate the warranty. Now, I'm going to get my microfiber cloth out now, so I'm going to take the front panel off and try and show you a close-up of what I've actually done to make the airflow as best as it possibly can be for this type of case. Again, this works for the Masterbox 3.1 and the Masterbox Lite 5, which is basically its bigger brother. It's got 3 fans on the front. It takes ATX as well as micro ATX, whereas the 3.1 is micro ATX only. So anyway, I'm digressing. Let's have a look at this front case panel and I'll show you what I've done. So this is your standard front panel. Now normally in this top section there's another piece of plastic which runs across the top, which is what this trim piece and this filtration strip normally would sit in there. So that kind of sits on like that, and there would have been a plastic frame that attaches to. So what I've done is I've taken the multi-saw, and I've actually used a wood with nails blade in there, which is quite a fine tooth. And what I've done is gently gone along and taken the edge out of this case. Now you've got to be very careful because obviously this is acrylic and it's opaque, so any damage you do to the inside will be visible on the outside. Now I have made a little bit of damage to this one, as you can possibly see from the slight close-up. You can probably make that out. It looks pretty bad from the inside, but when it's actually attached to the case and you look from the outside, it actually looks okay. So it isn't as bad as it seems. Now for the top one, that was only a tiny little piece, so that's only probably given a very little increase of an increase of airflow at the top. Not a massive amount, but every little helps, especially in this case. Now for the bottom part, this one was a little bit more of a hack job, although as you can possibly see, it's a relatively clean cut. This filter normally lives in this area at the bottom, somehow. So you get the general idea, that fits in the bottom there. And there was a large plastic frame which that all held into. So again, what I did was, with the multi-saw, is cut through the side pieces on both sides, and then really carefully along the bottom went along with the saw. Now I did find with the saw it was a little bit too aggressive and it was jumping quite a bit, so what I ended up doing was getting a Stanley knife, and with the Stanley blade just go along where the 2 pieces of plastic meet at the right angle and just keep on filing away at it with the knife. Gradually it will wear down to the point where it's got quite a lot of flex, and you can flex it about and it will snap off quite cleanly. And again, if you have a good look at that, you can see it's actually quite a nice clean job. And that means then when you've done that, you can take that off, give it a little bit of a clean up, get rid of any dust and debris, and you can attach it to the front of your case. You can have all the clips snapped firmly shut, and it actually doesn't look too bad. And if you put your hand underneath or above, you can feel there's quite a lot of airflow being sucked through there. And again, if you've got some static pressure fans, there's going to be no restriction hardly, so the static pressure fans are going to pull in a lot more air. I'm using Asia Horse 120 UAV fans, which say they're okay for static pressure or normal. They're kind of unoptimized for either, but they work for both. And I find them to be quite good. And that's even with the stock AMD cooler, which again isn't great in this particular case because you could do something a little bit larger just to remove some of that heat. But hopefully that's given you some ideas of how to keep your Masterbox Lite 3.1 or 5 nice and cool. If you've got any questions or comments, put them in the section below. But in the meantime, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews now too, and I'll see you again in the next video. Thanks for watching.